love her. So please join me in welcoming to the microphone the very funny Hannah Piper.
Good evening, everybody. How are we doing here tonight? Awesome. All right, so I figured I'd start with every comic's favorite topic, myself. A couple of things about me. I was born in Florida, which means I've dealt with the worst rain. I went to school in Boston, so I've dealt with the worst snow, and now I live in Virginia, so I've dealt with the worst drivers. Yeah. No, like, don't get me wrong. We're in Maryland tonight, but you guys have seen Virginia drivers, right? Like, Florida was filled with little old ladies that only drove to church on Sunday. They just had to leave Friday night with how slow they drove. And Boston drivers will slash their tires for having the audacity to stop at a red. But, like, Virginia drivers are on another level entirely. It's like they aggressively have nowhere to go. Yeah, you guys know. I've been cut off in the left lane by someone trying to make a right turn. I know what you're thinking right now. Isn't he like a queer comic? Why is he making a driving joke? And yes, I don't fit a lot of queer stereotypes. I do in fact own a motor vehicle. It's not even a Subaru, it's like a Honda Civic. I'm pretty good at math, and but I make up for it because I have a terrible relationship with my father. Yeah, no, I'm good at math because I'm also like a bit of a nerd. Come by it honestly. Was a physics major in college. Yeah, don't do any of that stuff now, but I'll talk about something that I learned every now and again, and someone will go, "Oh, are you a scientist?" And I'll say, "Non-practicing." Because it is a bit like being raised in the church and only going on Easter and Christmas, because you tell most people, and they go, "Oh, so you're one of those people." And you tell actual scientists, they go, "Oh, so you're going to hell." Yeah, growing up as a nerd was kind of weird because Hollywood still has this very outdated image of nerds. Like, they only exist to get shoved in a locker in the first 30 minutes, spend the next 90 minutes learning that all they have to do is change everything about how they interact with the world, and bam, they get the pretty girl and the credits roll. Like, did they not get the memo? Nerds are the new cool kids. Yeah, people even know what Dungeons and Dragons is these days. I tell people I'm a dungeon master, and I go, no, not with the dice. It's a weird sex thing that I do. That's not the only way that Hollywood paints this very different version of reality from the one I think we all live in. Like, it's little things, like no one in movies ever cancels plans unless something crazy dramatic has happened, like their long-lost brother suddenly shown up and kidnapped them. Like, here's a scene in a movie. Oh, they get a notification. It's always the person they were just talking about, which is also not like real life. I don't know about you guys, 9 times out of 10 I get a notification. It's Candy Crush telling me my lives have recharged, which... it's just not true. I'm single, I live alone, like... I haven't felt charged since I was 6. But, you know, in the movie, they look at their phone, they go, "Oh, it's Dave. He says he's not going to be able to make it tonight. Says he's not feeling well. I hope everything's okay." And then the scene changes and the villain's got a gun to Dave's head and is just saying, "Just make it sound natural." Meanwhile, the same scene takes place in real life and they go, "Oh, it's Hannah. Says he's not going to be able to make it tonight." Typical. Says he's not feeling well. And the scene cuts to me and I'm laying in my pajamas on the couch, having just opened a fresh carton of Ben & Jerry's and put on The Office for the 100th time because it's just been one of those weeks, guys. I'm a trans woman. I think that's pretty fucking cool. Thank you. If you didn't clap for that, I'm going to assume that you also reread Harry Potter without having any horrifying moral crisis. You try and reconcile the joy of childhood memories with disgust for the woman responsible for them. Not Rowling, I mean my mother. No, when I started coming out to my friends, I got a lot of support and like really nice things that made me feel good about myself. Well, except for one person. Yeah, she said something that really got under my skin. Do you know what it was? "Oh, yeah, that's not surprising." Excuse me? Not surprising? I was surprised. If you figured this out for me, couldn't you have told me? Maybe saved us all some heartache? Yeah, and I think that people are interested to learn that like, I didn't know I was trans, because there's definitely this media image that we all know from a very young age. And for me, it was not like that. It was more like, you know, how we all know we need to do something about global warming. Like, something is very, very wrong here. I'm not sure what, but I have a feeling if we don't figure it out soon, we're gonna have a way worse time with it later on. Yeah, no, but some people are actually pretty rude and unsupportive if you talk to them and tell them this. You know, they'll say things like, "How could you be a woman if you weren't born one?" And I have 2 things to say to them. 1, I was born a woman. It just took people a while to notice. Thank you. 2, is that I don't actually know. I don't understand gender well enough to think that I could define in one or two sentences like what womanhood is. And if you think about it, doesn't that kind of prove that I'm not a man? Thank you. No, and then so there's also the other question that comes up a lot is how long have you been trans? Which is another tricky one to answer because the timeline is a little bit fuzzy. If you ask me to pick a specific date as date, I'd go with November 3rd, 2020, which is also an important date. You may remember that there was a weird election that day. Yeah, that got really stressful for me because the stakes suddenly got way, way more personal way sooner than I was expecting them to. Yeah, which is not to say that I wasn't concerned about the election beforehand because, okay, this is gonna make me sound like a radical leftist out of context, but bear with me. I don't actually need to be directly affected by something bad before I care about it. Yeah, it feels good to get that off my chest. No, so I went to a doctor and I said, hey, I'm trans, can I get hormones, please? And they're like, yes. Before we do, though, we need to tell you some of the irreversible side effects, which is a scary phrase, even if you know it's coming and know what they are, irreversible side effects. If you walked into a Taco Bell and they said, before you order, we need to talk about the irreversible side effects, then you'd say, I don't need the gory details, just give me the goddamn gordita. That line does not work in the medical industry, I learned that day. No, they said there's 3 things. First, you may develop infertility. I'm like, don't worry, doc, throw some of those suckers, we're good. I was like, glad you're prepared, glad you did some research, let's move on. Second, you may develop erectile dysfunction. I'm like, doc, it's a dysfunction, I got anything down there get erect in the first place, give me something harder. He looked at me and I looked at him and he looked at me and I said, no pun intended. And then he did this long sigh and was like, why do I always get the ones that think they're funny? And then third, he said, you also may develop breast tissue. And I'm like, doc, that's a side effect? What the fuck do you think I'm here for? All right, you guys have been a great audience. Thank you. That's my time.
Keep it going for Hannah.